Good morning and welcome, everyone.
Hi, Mary.
Hey, Jacob. How's it going?
Oh, pretty good.
Really good to have you here.
Thank
and
you.
great to have you here. To everyone in Wickenburg, Powell, Butte, or watching online, thank you for being here. Thank you for making the decision to come to church this morning, wherever that may be. If you're watching later on in the week online, whether that's Facebook or YouTube, thanks for joining in as well. Jacob, how's it going?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. It's
Good.
a beautiful day. It's a little windy. I hate the wind. But that aside,
But is your heart okay about it?
my heart's good.
Good.
Just a little
Good.
breezy and cold.
Yeah.
But other than
Yeah.
that,
Well, that's okay.
yeah.
If you guys remember last week, we asked the Powell Butte campus to head out to our new media center building and write some of their favorite Bible verses or words of encouragement. And so that was awesome. There's so many different Bible verses and words of encouragement written there. So it's going to be awesome to just seal that all up and continue the construction
I
of
made
the
Levi
media.
memorize every single one of them so that when the drywall gets put on, I can point any specific spot on the wall and then he has to recite it.
We also have a shock collar
Yeah.
on Levi. So if he gets one wrong, just a little zap. Just kidding. Online campus, I also asked you guys to comment some verses or words of encouragement you guys did. So we made sure that those got put on there as well. So thank you for being a part of that. And it's just so cool to see physical, building growth here in Powell Butte. Yeah.
Seriously. Am I supposed to say something?
Yeah.
No, I forgot. Okay.
Yeah.
NTR thing?
Yes, yeah,
Okay, so
correct.
there's about 10 people in the Alvarado arena, 1017 arena.
There's
for
more than
the-
10 people.
Right, okay, from Powell Butte.
There's 10 people from the Powell Butte campus. Yeah.
And they, so pray that the NTR goes well
Yeah.
because that's a big deal
Yeah.
for 1017.
Yeah, it's super awesome.
Yeah.
So
Hey, Levi. No, I'm not doing anything.
Okay, so I guess I'm at this alone. It is very awesome to see people literally stepping in and going all over the country to help out with Shiloh Ranch things, with 1017 things. So to everyone in Texas right now putting on that roping, thank you so much. Let's see. Huge reminder to share the live stream here on Facebook. It's super easy. Find the share button, share it to your newsfeed. This just helps us to reach more and more people. So all of your friends and your family on Facebook can see what you're watching this morning. And like I said, it just reaches way more people, and we're just able to get church into multiple, like maybe one or two. Lots of different places around the world. I've already seen someone from the Ukraine. I saw someone from Chicago. I think that's in Ohio. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Chicago. So yeah, and if you're watching online, make sure and comment where you're watching from, who you're watching with. I also wanted to mention, if you guys remember, we started a hashtag when we started our online live streams, and that was hashtag Shiloh at home. So let's bring that back. Take a photo of where you're watching, share it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever, and use the hashtag Shiloh at home, whether that's today, right now, or maybe later today if you're rewatching, later this week, whatever. Let's just go ahead and get that hashtag going again. Oh, wow. Okay, so we're about to go into worship. It is actually, oh, hey, Jacob, you're back.
Yeah.
So nice of you to
Had an
join us.
important business
How's
call.
Levi doing? He's just right in there.
He found a step-side square body.
Good.
Anyway.
Awesome. Well, you guys, we're about to go into worship. It's actually one of my favorite worship sets. Just super awesome music. So when worship begins, please stand, worship along with us. And Jacob and I will be back to talk about our new sermon series. So you guys picked an awesome day to be here. We're so glad that you're here. I was looking at the wrong camera for almost that whole time.
That's hilarious. I was about to say, I was like, that's...
So anyways, we're going into worship. Stand, and we'll see you guys later.
You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. Sing it one more time. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, you're healing every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, you're turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, you're mending every heart. Lord, I worship you. Lord, I worship you. 'Cause you are the waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are the waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Yes, that is who you are. That is who you are. That is who you are. Oh, that is who you are. Even when I don't see, even when I don't see it, you're working. And even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. Oh, even when I don't see it, you're working. And even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are the waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. That is who you are. Yes, that is who you are. That is who you are. That is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You give life. You are love. You bring light to the darkness. You give hope. You restore every heart that It's your breath. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise to you only. Yeah, we just declare that, Jesus. Great are you, Lord. God, we know that you are the way maker, miracle worker, and promise keeper. God, we just thank you for this time of worship. God, we're grateful for the true words that we get to sing about you. God, help us to sing and lift our voices in worship until our lungs give out. We love you. Amen.
Giving is a part of what we do. We talk about being contributors, not consumers, and that's part of our culture. And so when we talk about giving, it's that we want to make sure that we're good soil. God is blessing us, it's expanding, it's growing. It seems like every week we're in a new home or a new hometown. And so the soil that we want to be is soil with depth, soil where people can put down roots. When you say hometown, you think about roots. That's what we want to be. So when we talk about giving, if you want to know what you're giving to, it's that. It's the expansion of this Jesus concept that says, wait, we can reimagine church. We can reinvent the rules that are held within the Bible that maybe have been added to in our culture. We can start to kind of figure out the balance there, that how we can see a kingdom culture starting to return to places where it's maybe been hard to reach. When we talk about giving, that's where it's going. You can send mail to P.O. Box 177, Powell, Butte, Oregon, 97753. It'll pop up here. Oh, it's over here. Oh, I'm just messing with Levi Jacob. You can go to our PayPal by texting 77977. 77977. Jake just gave me a thumbs up. Text the word Shiloh Ranch, all one word, no spaces. You can also go to our webpage. You can go to our app, the Shiloh Ranch. That'll all pop up here too. And like I said, don't feel like that you're a second-tier citizen if you're watching on a device. That's the vision, is that we want you to know that you matter in the process of where this is going.
I saw it. Oh my gosh.
I just wanted to wait here to see how long it would take.
Hey guys. So obviously I wasn't paying attention, but welcome back. So thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being, you're just such a great co-host, and you alert me when I'm not paying attention, and it's great.
I'm here for you.
Okay. We are so excited. We've been pushing to come to this service specifically this past week, and so if you're here, if you're watching, thank you. Thank you for being here. We're kind of rolling out a new style of sermons starting this week. We've got a few filmed, and Jacob, you actually went down to Texas a few weeks ago, or whenever that was, and filmed these. So kind of let us know what we should expect, your perspective from filming and being in the room. What's up?
Man, it was crazy. Multiple times I forgot that I was needing to pay attention to
Me too. That's
the
so
technology.
Weird. That's so weird.
You know, the cameras, the microphones, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, just because you get immersed into the stories that Jordan's gonna go over.
Yeah.
And the feeling in the room is I don't know, just peace. It was like you could really feel the Holy Spirit in there, and it's so cool that we get to go to these places
Right.
where those stories are. It kind of feels like we can go outside and almost get gold, get stories and then bring them back here,
Right.
and then from here be able to distribute
Broadcast,
them everywhere. I mean, I saw somebody watching from Ukraine.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Lots of different places.
And Jordan, he's focusing on 1017 arena and stuff. We've expanded the project to Texas. We're feeding it's crazy. And I can't even imagine him trying to focus on all the different inputs.
Right.
From Powell, Butte to Wickenburg to 1017, and so it was really cool that we were able to go there and get that content and then come back so, Jordan can
Yeah.
be everywhere at
Yeah.
once kind of thing. So
Yeah.
anyway, it was really cool. And I'm very excited to show everybody and
Yeah.
for people to watch it.
Yeah. So just another reminder, this is a great stream to share. Just put this out to your friends and your family on Facebook. It's going to be really awesome. And like I said, we do have a few of these pre-recorded already, and I think
Right.
it's probably something we'll continue to do because of how awesome it is. So we're excited. I lost my notes here. I don't think there's anything else. Oh yeah, I did want to say too, right after the sermon, right after the sermon, we'll go back into worship. Stay on the live stream. We do notice kind of a dip of people after the sermon ends, which is awesome. People have things to do. But I really love this next set of worship that's coming after the sermon. Actually, kind of a funny story. We do sing Amazing Grace in this second set. And I remember that day specifically because I struggled so hard to sing Amazing Grace. I couldn't get the timing right. I was messing up the words. And it's probably one of the most well-known hymns in the world. So I was kind of questioning, like, am I a worship leader or am I just poser? Anyways, so I feel like this worship set specifically is special to me because of that. So stick around. And above all, I would just say, from both Jacob and I, everyone at Shiloh, thanks for being here. Whether you're in a physical location, online, watching later, you guys are Shiloh. You guys are what makes Shiloh work. So thank you for being here. Continue to comment, continue to share, and we'll be back again after the sermon and worship.
Early on, I felt like I always had this conversation with God. Like, God, I never felt called to be a typical pastor, and it just felt like such a frustration. I wanted to do a good job. And I think that's important to state. It wasn't that I didn't want to do it because I didn't care about people. It was that I wanted to do a good job, and I felt like that I wasn't going to fit that model. But what you're going to see for the next 4 weeks, to me, is a moment of vision. It's almost like stepping into the promised land. Jacob flew down to be able to capture it. We had the people in the room that I've been trying to get to come to Oregon, but they're busy and they've got lives and stuff that they're doing. We met some people that are just, the stories are unbelievable. And like I said, I don't even know how to tell you to prepare for where we're going. I'm excited for you guys to get to hear it. I'll tell you a little bit about each individual story, but this is going to be the thing that you're going to hear for 4 weeks in a row as we go through what, I don't even know what we're calling it yet. Maybe like the evolution of a sermon. Maybe it's maybe kind of a hybrid between a podcast and a sermon. I'm actually happy that it doesn't have a name because it means it's something that we haven't seen over and over and over again. I will say this, we sat in the room yesterday and there was just this awe and sort of this silence where everybody's sort of looking at each other like, man, you feel it. You feel what God is doing in the room with these people and with these people that love Jesus. And so I'm so excited that we now have a method or a means by which we can share those private, intimate moments, these Jesus moments that go into the depth of what his word says and what it looks like played out in people's lives. And I'm so grateful that we were able to capture that in a way that now can be put in front of people that I know this. I know there's going to be people every single week that find themselves in the stories that you're going to hear over the next 4 weeks. I don't know how to prepare you for what you're about to see this week. Jody Webb has a story that I can't fully grasp. We sat there yesterday in the studio, and I mean, you're going to see it, and it'll be tears in the services there. And if you're watching online, be ready. Just this overwhelming concept of a life and the tragedies and the traumas and the things that people go through that you see every day that you wouldn't even know. We got into her story, and I mean, I was almost like tempted to stop and go, we got to start over. Like, I'm not prepared for this. But here's what I love about it. It's a story of redemption. It's a story not of our version of recovery, but God's version of recovery, and how somebody whose life was so different, even living in a culture that's so similar, I'm so excited for people to hear. I love those moments where you go, no way, somebody else has been through what I've been through. And I think that's going to be the case. I think there's going to be people who watch this and go, I never felt like I was going to be able to open up. And what I expect is that Jody's going to give people a lot of hope, and I'm excited for you guys to hear her story.
It's like close. I'm gonna end up going whack. Because I talk with my
I'll try to make it formal and I'll church it up.
Do you know me at all? Hello, brother Steve. Welcome to my podcast.
Welcome to
Hi, welcome to my YouTube page.
There's got to be more.
Jody Webb. Let me just say this as we're starting. For you guys, wherever you're watching this from, you guys are not ready for what we're about to go into. And so I feel, first of all, grateful that you're here.
Thank you for having me.
And I feel responsible to make sure that we don't go clear through the floor of depth. Like we could keep it, it's a 35-minute window. So somebody's going to have to give me like a caw because we're going to get to it probably quicker than we anticipate. I met you through Steve Stone.
Yes.
One of my just dearly treasured friends. You guys can't see that. He's just off camera over here. And he started to tell me a little bit of your story. And like a few seconds into it, I'm like, whoa, stop. And he's like, no, here's the other thing. And like he kept, I don't know how many times I told him, like, I don't have a basis. I don't have a way to understand what you're trying to tell me. So the challenge is that we're in a season, Shiloh, we're moving into a season that I feel called to fertility. And I'm going to read it real quick because this will sort of start the cornerstone of where we're going to go. But in Matthew 13, Jesus says this in verse 1, that same day Jesus went out to the house and sat by the lake. Such large crowds gathered around him that he got into a boat and he sat in it while all the people stood on the shore. When he told them many things in the parable, saying, a farmer went out to sow his seed, and he was scattering the seed. Some fell along the path, and the birds came up and ate it. Some fell on the rocky places where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly, but because the soil was shallow. But when the sun came up, the plants were scorched, and they withered because they had no roots. Other seed fell among the thorns, which grew up and choked the plants. And verse 8 says, still other seeds fell on the good soil, where it produced a crop, 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown. Whoever has ears to hear, let him hear. In my mind, fertility is just, it's all I can think about when I think of the kingdom right now. To be a place where God can trust different stories and different places in people's development. And one of the things, this is where I'm going to ask you to jump in. One of the things that I know is that so many people feel like they're not going to have a place in church. Their story is too messed up. Their process is too damaged. Enter Jody Webb. Can you start where you feel it makes sense? But before we can even get to your nonprofit, tell us where your story kind of started.
So I grew up with a rodeo and ranching family. Unfortunately, it wasn't the best upbringing that you could possibly think of, even though, we think of rodeo and ranching as like this wholesome, Christian loving atmosphere. It wasn't that at all. I was sexually abused from birth. And then I was sold for sex starting at the age of 7 for the first time at rodeos and ranch rodeos. And
I think people are probably, as they're listening, I can almost already hear the gasps of like, because that's where Steve, when he told me that, I'm like, no, wait. Can you, at rodeos, at ranch rodeos, as a child? As a child.
Yeah, so I was traded for anything from hay, farrier services, money, drugs, basically for the cruel amusement of other people's pleasure.
Now, I'm going to let you sort of guide where we go here, because something that the average person not understanding that background, because this is Steve really kind of helped me prepare for like this, because I'm so unaware of that process. I'm so unaware of how that transaction would even come up in conversation. And that's what Steve and I said, like, it's hard to fathom. And I think this is probably the majority of people would say it's hard to even understand how a situation like that comes to be. But then on the other hand, I know there are people sitting in church right now hearing that going, oh my gosh, I thought I was alone. I thought I wasn't the only one.
Yeah.
How does it get that far off of what we would consider to be normal?
I think when you're raised in an atmosphere like that, your mind and the trauma that you go through is all you know. So abuse is all you know. So as you grow up, vast majority of those that have been abused end up being abusers, because the trauma is so intense in the brain. It's a repetitive cycle of what you know. So the evil that is inserted into your life from these acts being done to you, it becomes just a norm for you. So unfortunately, so many people that have been sexually abused end up being abusers themselves and don't know how to stop that perpetual cycle of what the devil is doing and driving them towards to do to other people.
Do you think that the culture or the society of sexual abuse, and I hate to even give it a term like society because that sounds way too normal, whatever system allows for that, do you feel like it's getting worse, or do you think we're just starting to realize it because information is so more readily available? Does this seem like something we're moving into more than it used to be, or do you think this is something that's been around?
No, this has been around. It's just so common. It's sickening. It's so common. So, you're looking out into your congregation, and there's 1 in 3 women that have been sexually abused, and girls currently being abused. And it in boys is just as much, but boys don't come forward as often. So it's a very common thing. And what I also like to say is, like, when you're sitting there looking at your congregation, or you're an event and you're looking around, and you're looking abusers in the face, but they've never been given the opportunity for freedom to know that the Lord loves them, and then they don't have to keep choosing that path of hurting children. Like, there's freedom behind that. And so people put abusers in this box that they're not loved just because of their actions. And that's not true. They can stop what they're doing. They just need to admit that that is what they're doing and seek out help. Yeah. And there is help out there. There is deliverance that can happen.
There's such a stigma when I say like, it's so far out. 2 things. It's so far outside the scope of understanding for people without that background. And it's such a source of shame or opportunity for abuse, where it stays sort of hidden for the people that are familiar. Yeah.
The shame is so bad.
And so the two almost probably don't interact, because there's people that don't want around it, and there's people that don't want it discovered. And so it's almost like they mutually agree to stay.
Right.
When we're talking about soil, what I mean in a general sense, everything is like church this and church that. And I don't mean it like that. I mean at an individual level, how does someone, because I would say now you're on the other side of it.
Correct.
And the hope that represents for somebody that might be listening to this going, I just can't see a bridge. I just can't see, because they're so mutually exclusive from each other. How does somebody begin to find a place where they can settle into soil? And what I mean by that is not be a completed thing day one, but find a place to start the process of healing, because that is a lifelong, I'm going to say, and
it's lifelong.
Yeah. You're almost never out of that process.
Never.
Where 2 things. If we're not from that background, how do we make sure that we're a safe place for somebody? If you are from that background, how do you start the process of finding a place where a Jesus experience can even start?
I can only share like my experience and what the Lord did in my life. Of course, I didn't know the Lord, but unfortunately, it almost seems like every time someone hits rock bottom, something tragic or large in their life is what kicks that off. And so for me, it was a diagnosis of my daughter. At 9 years old, she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And in that moment, almost losing her life is where it just wrecked me, that I no longer could sit in that place of dysfunction in my actions and the things that I was doing to just suffocate myself and drown myself in the pain that I was in. And I was just to the point where I couldn't go anymore. And a lot of times people have to be pushed to that level in order to really submit and be like, okay, there's got to be, but there's also not enough education out there about it. There's not enough education about trauma and what trauma does to an individual, to the brain, and how, what resources are there out there for people. And for me, my resource is true deliverance and understanding what demonic forces attack the brain because of the trauma, attack the body because of trauma, and then are taught how to break free from that and actually get true deliverance from everything that you've been through in your past.
Well, and what you just said about there's in the midst of the chaos, because I think sometimes people are more comfortable in the chaos than the beginning of healing, because it's unfamiliar. Healing is unfamiliar. Chaos has been home for so long.
Exactly. The beginning of healing is absolutely excruciating. And people, when they dip their toe into that, that's why so many people go back to drugs or go back to affairs or go back to sex or go back to whatever it is, eating disorders. They go back because that's their comfort zone. That's their familiarity. That abuse on themselves is so normalized to them. They don't want to step out of that comfort zone and try to see what growth, if they uproot, what really caused all of that, then they can actually start that healing path. But when you start to pick that root out of the ground, it's a scary process because they're afraid of what's going to grow out from underneath that.
From a soil perspective, as Jesus, what I love about the word is that nothing is casually put there. Everything that's put there, upon examination, grows. Correct. The longer you look at something, the more that's actually there. So when Jesus is talking about the soil where something starts, but because there's not enough of a base, it dries out and dies quickly, or there's other things that choke it out. So would you say that somebody looking for a Jesus experience or trying to begin to consider, and I don't think people go from 0 to all in. I think they begin to consider first of like, what if it is Jesus? That the abuse patterns represent like the weeds that come in and try to choke that out?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. Abuse is...
It seems, honestly, Jody, it seems impossible to me. Just listening, it seems impossible that somebody could choose Jesus in that moment or allow Jesus to sort of make that contact. I see all the competition for their life, that person's life, coming from a damaged background, coming from a place that leaves you feeling like you have no worth. Because sometimes it's almost like that knowing that you have worth in Jesus gives you that ability to push forward through the hard times. But if you don't have that self-worth, it would be so much easier to go, well, it doesn't matter anyway. The stakes are so low in our own like thought of ourselves that how does somebody even get traction towards self-worth again?
I think it goes back to what you said earlier about what can someone do that isn't necessarily knowledgeable in that area. So somebody like yourself, right? What can you do to help someone like me? And that's to basically educate yourself and be that mentor, be that person to say, I may not get it. I may have not walked in your shoes, but I can support you through the process. And I'm going to be there to the freaking bitter end, because people jump ship. They're not going to stay because the trauma's too hard. Yeah. It's too hard to work through, or it might bubble up something in you from your past,
right,
and they're not willing to sit through it and silt through all the dust until you get to those breaking points. And so people that don't understand need to educate themselves.
So the soil, if my goal is to be or to create a safe place, you're saying that soil includes staying power. Staying power,
100%. I can't tell you how many people have come in and out of my life and been ripped out of my life over and over and over again. And I started to think it was my problem. And it was me that was the reason why these people weren't staying. Well, it was because they didn't have enough staying power.
It's a soil issue.
It's a soil issue. It's their own issue that they didn't stay in my life.
Yeah.
So, I, like you mentioned, Steve and Jamie Stone, like they haven't been in my life long, but the staying power is there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know deep down that they're never going to leave me.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what I did.
Right.
Doesn't matter what my life looked like, how shambles it was.
Yeah.
But they believe in me so deeply. I've never had people of like motherly and fatherly figure that believe in me.
Yeah.
The way that they do.
Yeah.
And that's staying power.
See, and that's, I hope that's what people are starting to kind of grasp. When I say fertility, it's an expense. I mean, like, no mom that's ever gotten pregnant expects that the baby is there to support her health. Her health exists to support the life of this new thing. It's expensive. Like, I think of our church in Powell, Butte specifically, because that's where all this started. And their staying power for me is I'm learning how to be a pastor. I mean, I have that. I'm listening to what you're saying, and it's like, even as a pastor, I feel like God put people in my life that were like, we'll be here. As you're figuring it out, as you're sort of working this out, what makes them good soil is not who they are as a church. It's who they are as people. You know, Steve and Jamie represent the kingdom of what it means when God gets a hold of someone's life, and they start to sort of demonstrate that out. Now, if you put those group of people together, you would call that a church.
Right.
But it's not because it's a church. It's because it's individuals that God is creating depth. And so I wouldn't say that I was damaged. I would say that I've been in this process of learning almost what it means to develop fertility. Like, how do I make sure that at my expense that I don't expect that this process is for me? It goes from me out into the lives of other people. And so you've started a nonprofit. I'm segueing into what God has done in your life. you are now becoming the soil more so even than the seed, in a sense that you're becoming this safe spot where people can come in. And I met Rihanna, and she's here. I'm almost jealous for the people that aren't here, the people that we're getting to hang out with right now. But how did the transition from healing into fertility, I guess, if that's a way to say it, where did that start?
So right after my daughter was diagnosed, and I just basically cried out to God, he, just radically gave me a mission to go to Africa and start working with kids. And when I was in Africa, I would basically get kids connected to the horse. So a lot of people are like, oh, how the heck do you find horses in Africa? Well, God would bring them to me. So
Zebras.
Zebras. And I would get the kids connected to horses because of their own trauma, whatever they've been through. A lot of them sexually abused, type 1 diabetics, so God really started using horses when I was in Africa. And then he said, I want you to use your trauma, your story to build a program to peel back the layers of trauma of children that have been sexually abused and trafficked. So I developed that equine program, and today, what stands is Kingsgate Ranch. So we're building ranches for the number one demographic here in the United States that is trafficked, which is aging out foster children. That aging out foster system is extremely broken here in the United States.
Steve said something yesterday, and I don't think people are used to the verbiage, but he said, we say foster kids. The world calls them orphans.
100%. 100%. So it's the same demographic because we work internationally and domestically, and that demographic is orphan. They all have orphan spirits, whether they have one parent, whether they have both parents, whether they're truly orphans. We've all experienced the orphan spirit. And when you have that orphan spirit and it is embedded in who you are, that's where your worthlessness comes from, that you're not valued, that you have no worth, that drives these kids to the streets. And when they're in the streets, they get trafficked. And so their trauma from childhood, most of them sexually abused, drives them straight into the arms of traffickers.
How does someone that's watching that might be susceptible to what you're saying is the orphan spirit, because it's like once you can identify it, you're more prepared to guard against it. Mm-hmm. What does that look like in the life of somebody who goes, well, both of my parents are alive, and yet you're saying that's a spirit that can attach itself to somebody,
to anybody.
What does that look like?
So the way I like to describe it is, let's use you have two good parents, right? Or you think they're good parents. The devil wants every single person on this earth to feel worthless, because if he can get you in that worthless state inside your mind, he's going to grab a hold, and then all of a sudden that worthlessness goes, well, if I'm worthless, then I might as well drink. Yeah. Or if I'm worthless, I might as well have an affair. Or if I'm worthless, then I'm going to find my worth in something else.
Right. Well,
right?
And what difference does it make?
It doesn't matter because you're worthless. Yeah. So it doesn't matter whether you have two parents or no parents. That the devil is going to instill that orphan spirit when you give the devil the legal right to do that. And the legal right comes from your own sin. Your sin can be something as so simple as how you think inside your mind. The negativity that you think in your mind is a sin. So when you give the devil that legal right to then go, okay, I'm going to attack you with the orphan spirit, and I'm going to make you feel worthless. I'm going to make you feel like that there's no hope for you.
Yeah,
and then you're going to turn
so low. That
it
does. Well, and does it seem like that people that feel like they have no value, they don't recognize abuse as abuse? Because if you feel like that you're valuable and that you're important, and somebody harms that, I would hope that my kids go, "That's not okay."
Right.
Whereas if somebody has no self-worth, they would go, "Well, it's just me. It's not a big deal. It's just, you're only hurting me, and I'm not worth anything."
Yeah.
Do you see that where people go further down into an abuse before they recognize it as abuse?
Correct. They do. Yeah, almost all of us do. It's just a common denominator with the trauma that comes.
So with what you're doing with the horse thing, the connection, how does a kid go from zero self-worth back to having a sense of purpose or like a vision for his life, an identity, I guess? Mm-hmm.
So our program actually starts by using the Bible, instilling boundaries, healthy boundaries, because we don't know what boundaries are when you've been abused like that. When you've been sexually abused, you have no clue what boundaries are. You don't know what that looks like. So we utilize the horse to represent what those healthy boundaries look like and make new healthy relationships and decisions within the arena. Once they've done that, they start understanding what that healthy pattern looks like. So how do I make a healthy decision? Well, I just made a healthy decision to not let that horse enter into my boundary, or me enter into that horse's boundary without permission.
It's almost like you're learning it without knowing that you're learning it.
Exactly. So we start just peeling back those layers of trauma little by little by little. And I will say there's a lot of therapies out there that force the brain to try and remember suppressed memories, and it's not healthy whatsoever. The Lord wants you to remember those memories whenever He's ready for you to work through that. So there are so many pieces of my story that I had this sliver, and I didn't understand that sliver, right? And then when I got to a certain point in my healing,
like a
God was
bookmarker.
like, ba-boom, here, I'll let you have a little bit more because now you can handle that sliver. So our program is meant to do that layer by layer by layer, and it's Holy Spirit driven. So our clinicians that are in the arena, which is Rhiannon is our lead clinician, like they know to listen to the Holy Spirit for this specific child.
Yeah.
It's not like we're going to go from A to Z and we're only going to do this. It's
Right.
what does God need for that specific child? And that clinician needs to be so in tune with the Holy Spirit that when the God says, okay, well, we're not going to do this today. We're going to do this because that child needs to be busted open in this area.
Yeah.
And then we're going to work through that.
Right.
And it's all done with the use of the horse.
You said something yesterday when we were talking, and I think this is something that I don't think I'd even comprehended. And I'm just going to touch on the earmark of something, and we don't have to go down this road, but the transactional part of trafficking, I was so confused by that. And you said it's not a financial transaction, it's a spiritual oppression. It's a means that that the enemy will use this person to help facilitate worthlessness in this person. It's a spiritual transaction more than it's a financial one. But you said something yesterday that stuck with me, is that people begin to eventually traffic themselves. And that's whole new verbiage to me. But your point was people see that as a means to gain here or there, or they see themselves as worthless. In a nutshell, if you could describe that, because I thought that, to me, that just opened up my eyes, because you know people that go through this season of life where the promiscuity seems like it's got an energy to it.
Yeah.
There's somebody going through something and you're like, something seems off, but it's on a frequency that I don't quite understand. What is trafficking to someone who would go, what does trafficking yourself look like for somebody going through a spiritual battle?
You know, I can only use myself as an example. And so the world views trafficking as a money transaction, obviously, like you said.
That's
right?
literally until yesterday, that's all I understood.
Yeah,
to
so
me.
that's the way law here in the United States and internationally, if there's a money exchanged for sex for an underage child, then it's trafficking, right? Well, okay, that makes sense. That's the law. But when you're looking at it from a spiritual perspective, the devil wants to make that transaction too. And if he can make that transaction in any way possible, then it just made your self-worth and who you are diminished even more.
And he gets it.
And he gets it.
Yeah.
And he gets it. So that transaction to me is, you know, like in college prior to meeting my husband and all that, but prior to college, it was, my trauma was so intense and so embedded in my brain. It was so easy for me to automatically traffic myself to men that I was rodeoing with, boys that I was college rodeoing with, because it's all I knew. And that transaction was something that I was used to doing. And of course, the devil was used to making that transaction on my life spiritually over and over and over again.
Right.
So
because it started, like I said, the abuse started at birth. The trafficking started at 7 and continued kind of.
It stopped with the people that were trafficking me from my family when I was 16. But then I left home at 16.
That's a huge period of development in life. And so the concept of trafficking yourself, that's where the lights came on for me, was this is how life works. This is how you get what you want. These are the means by which.
That's all I knew.
And it doesn't seem like abuse because that's what life had always been. There's no distinction. There's no perspective. And so if you're, this is the part that, this is why I felt like today was so necessary, because if that was taking place in my culture and in my circle, that means it's way more prevalent than we would think.
Correct.
In your mind, I mean, what are we talking? In our nation, because like I said, that's my backyard. I hear that and I'm like, if it's there, it could be anywhere. If it's everywhere, and if it is everywhere, that means there are people that I know that went through that, but that haven't made that leap, like what you're saying.
Yeah,
that you're in a place where you are fertile soil. You have this ability to start replicating healing and depth and the staying power, the Steve Stone type stuff, the Powell Butte people for us and what Shiloh means. But you've made that leap. I mean, how many millions, in your estimate, how many millions of people are there that this is their background and that never comes to the surface?
I can't even put a number to it because I'm not the typical, my life wasn't a typical life. I grew up with, financial means. I grew up with horses. I grew up as a cheerleader. I was the head cheerleader. I was homecoming duchess. I was FFA queen. I was the town queen. I grew up with all of these materialistic things that no one would have ever dreamed that this was my life.
Right.
So how many of us out there are just like that?
Are you the only person? I already know the answer to this. I'm asking because I want the record to state. Are you the only person that you know that's been trafficked in this culture?
In the rodeo world? No. No, it's endless. Once I actually opened up my mouth and stated that this happened to me, it was God. He was just affirming me that this was, because it was hard for me to wrap my head around, right? Because this is supposed to be a culture that is so loving and family oriented that how can this happen?
Yeah.
But I knew it happened to me. So it was like, but I would question like, well, obviously I'm this or I'm that, or this didn't happen or that didn't happen, or I'm making it up. And then God would bring me one girl after another, after another, after another that are in rodeo families that seem like their life is together or their family life is together that have been trafficked within the rodeo world. And so it was just God reaffirming me that there's way more of us out there but there's a lot more of us because of the trauma that are self-sabotaging and trafficking ourselves as well.
Yeah.
That's huge.
See, and I think once people understand that they can be a part of hurting themselves, once they recognize it, you can't see it as just incidental anymore. It starts to become wait, this is an actual problem.
Yeah. And just, if my story opens up something in a girl or boy, because boys do it to themselves too. It's not one-sided. It's not just girls.
Right.
But typically, it's highlighted on the girls. But if my story can like bust open for a girl to be like, wait a minute here, this is maybe what I'm doing to myself.
Yeah.
And then reach out to our organization, like, and start making, that's when the door opens. And that's when those roots can start being pulled up. And they stop feeling so suffocated because they don't feel like they're alone.
Yeah. Okay. So as we go into this series, where are we at on time? I have this thing I do where I could just literally I could do this for another hour. Okay. As we go into this series, because we're talking to a church that this is new to them too. This is our first week talking about fertility as a culture, like being a fertile culture where at our expense, we are a safe place, and exactly what you're talking about. I listen to what you're saying, and it almost makes more sense with what you're doing, even than what I'm trying to communicate. Because if somebody comes in on their own, their chances of just randomly figuring it out are so slim.
Minuscule.
It's hard anyway. It's going to be hard anyway. How necessary, if somebody is sitting at go right now, considering trying to become healthy or moving towards a Jesus concept, how important is it to find a culture of people that represent soil, the Jamie and Steve Stone type people on that process? How important is that? Can you state?
There's no word to say how important it is because it's that important. I always, like, every time I'm mentoring a new girl, like it literally is so incredibly important to have mentorship, Christ-centered mentorship in your life, that you literally can say, I've done this, like this morbid thing. And for them to look at you like Jamie and Steve look at me and go, but I still love you.
Right.
But I still love you. It doesn't matter. And there's not enough of us within the Christian community. I'm not even going to say church, the Christian community that will let someone, when you admit you've had an abortion. Well, in your life, that's like, how the hell could you do that?
Right.
But for you to look at me and say, but I still love you.
Right.
Right? I still love you.
Yeah, there is no such thing as too far.
No.
It doesn't
and
exist.
That's why
the scope of too far gone in a Jesus community, that's not how the scale works. It doesn't work.
If the trauma individual can just understand that there is a tribe, is that's Jamie and Steve's word that they've always said to me is there is a tribe like us that are all sitting here tonight that will support them, that want to hear the nitty gritty, and will work through them and stand beside you, and we're not going to leave you.
Right. And that includes future. And I think that's important to know too, because I think people put a lot of pressure on themselves. Is like, this is my big reset and I better take advantage of it. And the minute they mess up, then it's like, okay, I tried it. I'm almost saying that, like, for it to be an accurate culture of growth and development and fertility and all the things that anybody at any point in their process can be safe in that environment, it has to include the future too. We want you to make good choices. We want you to go the right direction. But even if you don't, that's not the pre-qualifier.
No, you're going to take 2 steps forward and 12 steps back, and then 12 steps forward and 2 steps back.
Yeah.
And you've got to know that going in, that you're going to screw up because you have all these years of trauma of doing something the same way. Your pathways and your neurons in your brain have made one pathway, and now you're trying to go overnight, go and switch it all.
Right.
Like, it's almost impossible.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's nothing impossible for God, but I mean, they've got to understand that it's going to be a journey and it's going to be a process. And, you know, I'm 45 years old and I'm still peeling back layers. I'm still dealing with trauma.
Yeah.
It just looks different now. It's in a healthier manner than it was, 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
It's so crazy to me because you're talking about the rodeo culture, and we were probably at the exact same places. I was probably, as a kid, I was probably present in the places where you were.
Probably.
So if we're talking about, and like I said, I'm just pounding this drum right now because I want the lights to start coming on for people that call this place home. You didn't need, because Steve, whether he'd admit it or not, Steve's a pastor. Steve is like
100%.
He's a shepherd. I
asked him when he was going to start his church the other day.
So, but Steve, in my mind, is like one of those undocumented type of ministry people that you don't look at Steve and go, Pastor Steve. Even if Steve had his own church, I don't think anybody would call him Pastor Steve. That to me gives me hope that people can start to adopt this apart from an occupation. Mm-hmm. It's not an occupational, okay, I'll accept it, I'm going to go be in the ministry. It's literally people that are tuning in going, I know somebody like that I could love, that I could unconditionally be there for, that I could be a safe place for. That's to me where the culture starts to grow out, is when people start to understand it's not from the pulpit, because you didn't need somebody to sit at a pulpit and preach to you. Mm-mm. People that are sort of examining this from a soil perspective just need somebody that'll sit next to them, not in front of them.
100%. 100%.
So how does somebody, like I said, we're going to wrap up because it might be a 2-part thing, but for the sake of time, as we're kind of winding down, how does that start in someone's life that hasn't been from that culture, hasn't been from that background, but that says, I want to be a safe place if God brings someone like that into my life? Because I think it starts with this conversation. People start to understand what to look for, and God inevitably just brings somebody right on the heels of it.
Right.
How does somebody prepare to be a safe place for someone coming out of that?
I think they need to connect with somebody like myself or an organization like ours that can walk them down that path of, this is what you need to be for that person. These are the skills and the tools that you need in order to support that individual through their process. And then, just connecting with people, just like I said, like-minded, Christ-centered individuals that can help them understand that it's a long process. It's a lifelong process, and you got to be willing to walk a long ways with somebody.
It's almost forever. It's almost forever. It's
it
almost like
forever.
It's almost, like the rich young ruler. He comes to Jesus and he goes, "What do I have to do?" It's almost like, show me where the end is. Mm-hmm. And Jesus' answer was basically, there is no end. And he goes, I can't go that far. And he goes, no, that's the whole thing. Mm-hmm. I'll go the rest of how far you don't get for you. But you don't ever reach a point. It's like, I want to get in shape. Well, what's the mark? Well, really, kind of, it's never. The standard changes as you're getting healthier, but you never reach a point where you go, I'm done.
Yeah, no, you're never going to arrive. That's not how it works. But like, true deliverance from trauma that you've been through like this is an ongoing process. So I haven't been delivered from everything that I need to be delivered from. Right. I'm not going to have that opportunity until I hit heaven's gates. Yeah. But it's a peeling back. I always say it's a peeling of layer by layer by layer, and allowing people to love on you and walk life with you. Because every person that I mentor, I live, breathe, eat, sleep, who they are, what's in their life, text, calls.
Yeah.
Now I don't become their crutch.
Right.
Right? There's a fine line there, but I walk life with them, and I make sure that, that I'm communicating with them on an ongoing basis so that they know that I'm there.
The hope that I see, and this is what I hope other people see, and I know you pick up on it in person, but what you hope it transfers through the camera is that you don't wear it. You don't wear damage. You don't wear old past trauma the way that some people do, which to me says there's hope in that. I hope somebody watching this is able to see you and see what we see, which is like, maybe it never ends. Maybe it is a lifelong process, but it does come to a point where it doesn't hurt like it used to hurt.
100%. I think what we say within our organization is trauma to transformation, to become an overcomer. When you're an overcomer is when you don't wear your trauma on the outside. You don't even wear it on the inside, right?
Yeah.
And it's just so important for people to understand that you can overcome the massive trauma that you've been through, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
And you can, as you say, it doesn't look like you wear it,
Yeah.
You can be that person, and people need to know that they can do that.
I can't think of a better way to start what we're trying to do here. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
The sun comes up, it's a new day dawning. It's time to sing your song again. And whatever may pass and whatever lies before me, worship His holy name and sing like never before. Oh, my soul, I worship Your holy name. I worship Your holy name. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious is that grace appeared the hour I first believed. The Lord has promised good to me. His word, my hope secures. He will my shield and portion be, as long as life endures. Amazing grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saves a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Was blind, but now I see. Yeah, God, we just thank you again for today. God, we thank you for opening our eyes to see a greater love, a greater peace that comes from you, Jesus. God, we just ask that you would help us to learn more about you this week. Learn more about your love and your peace that casts out fear. We love you. Amen.
All right. Wow. Well, we've reached the end of another amazing Sunday. That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was
seriously.
awesome. I didn't really know what to expect, but yeah, that was amazing. And we talk a lot about our preaching team and all of the different perspectives and opinions that we get to see because of that. But talk about perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so cool that we're able to just bring in people who aren't pastors, and just all they have to do is share their story, and that's in itself a sermon.
Yeah,
It's so awesome.
I mean, I didn't even know the story until
Yeah.
15 minutes, or we didn't know we were going to be doing that until 15 minutes before we started recording.
Wow.
And I was hearing about it, and I was like, wait, what? Because
Yeah.
it's such a different world that, I mean, so then to sit there and see somebody that could be your neighbor, could
Right.
be anybody going through something
Yeah.
that's like not even in my realm of thinking was
Right.
like, it was crazy.
Powerful.
I'm glad
Yeah.
we got to capture it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, if you would like to learn more about Jody and her nonprofit organization, I just posted the link in the comments of the live stream. But you're going to want to go to www.kingsgateranch.org. And there's so many different ways that you can support the organization. You can give financially. If giving financially isn't in the cards right now for you, another huge way to support nonprofits, small businesses, is just being active on their social media, sharing their website, because you never know who you might share this website to, who maybe needs it or is able to support it or knows someone that needs it. So even if you can't support financially, just please know that sharing the website on your social media or telling people about it is just as powerful, getting the word out there. So the link for that is in the comments of the live stream, or again, just wherever you are. The website is www.kingsgateranch.org.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So-
I want to know your thoughts.
Yeah.
Meaning what you think about it, what you feel.
Yeah.
Because this is different. And we've never, I don't know. I mean, I want to
It's
find.
a topic I feel like that isn't talked about in church a lot.
Yeah. So, it's a different format.
Right.
Let me know what you think.
Yeah.
I got one question about just the Alvarado facility and when, we're going to have footage back to show that. And we do. We have some footage, and we got a guy down there this weekend with the
Yeah.
NTR, getting a drone up there. And basically, so we'll
Yeah,
get to
it's
show
pretty
you
awesome.
guys all of that soon, which will
Yeah.
be super cool.
Yeah. Just a reminder, if you need prayer, we have lots of different avenues for you to receive prayer. So if you're here in Powell, Butte, our mother's room does turn into a prayer room afterwards. So if you're not sure where that is, just ask someone. We'll point you in the direction. Go there. We've got our prayer team in there ready to pray with you. If you're online, make sure and comment on the live stream. You can send us a message on social media. You can also always send an email to srccpray@gmail.com. So lots of different ways to get prayer. I know I say this every week, but it almost seems a little bit heavier this week.
Yeah, reach
you're
out.
not alone. Reach out. Let us pray for you. We've got an amazing prayer team, just wonderful, amazing people. So just know that we'll listen. We'll pray with you. So yeah. Another quick thing, keep an eye out on Facebook later today. Actually, Jordan might be doing some sort of live stream tonight. So we'll make sure he posts an announcement prior, announcing the time and all of that. So I think that'll be awesome too. As Jacob said, let us know what you think about this new sermon style and this new series that's coming up, and that would be a great opportunity for you to comment on that and let us know. Wickenburg, make sure and stick around. You've got some words from Mark. And just last final announcement, share this stream. We're still live. Even when we're not live, you can go back and you can share it. But just think, if there's one person on your friends list that may need to hear this message today, then that's worth
'Cause
sharing to all of your
You have no idea
friends.
who it's going to be.
Yeah. So share as much as you can. Please go share, support Jody's organization. She's just doing amazing work. So, and Jody, if for some reason you're watching this, thank you.
Thank you.
For sharing your story. Wow, it's so powerful. So stick around, come back next week. I think we're going to do maybe the second installment next week, or so just to hear people's stories is exciting. But what do you got?
Run from bad guys. Oh, that's your thing.
That
Sorry.
comes later, you guys. Love people, forgive people, be kind to people, and run from bad guys. We'll see you next week.